Hello my friends, this is one of the most requested videos for the past few months. This is my new studio tour, my studio tour version 2.0. In this video, I'm going to show you all the gear that I have in my studio, my workflow, all the little things that I have right here that make my life easier. So let's get started, let's talk about gear. So as I've talked in my previous studio tour, I'm going to link this video down below. My studio is ever evolving. Nothing remains the same for more than a month, to be honest with you. So that's why it's so difficult for me to do a studio tour video, because many times I have a piece of gear, I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep it, I start using it, then it goes back to the storage room and I start using something else. But in this case, at this point in my life, I have kind of crystallized what I have in my studio, and I felt that I'm finally ready to make a studio tour version 2.0. So without any further ado, let's start from the back of the studio. So right here I have my guitars. Actually, that's not all my guitars, but these are the ones that I use the most. So I have two basses. I have a Yamaha TRB active bass. It's beautiful. I love this thing. It's an amazing bass, super versatile, classic Yamaha active sound. Can't get any better than that. Next, we have the Fender jazz bass. This bass, I love it. It's so good. This also has an active circuit here, by the way. Can't remember the exact model. I'm gonna do my best to add links down below, but you know, some of these things might not exist anymore. The next guitar is this Yamaha Revstar. This is a beauty. I love it. I love the whammy bar on this one. It's a beautiful guitar. It's really heavy, really nice woods. Right now, it's the only guitar. Actually, I have another one. I have an Ibanez that has a whammy bar, and I like whammy bars, to be honest with you. And this is a really nice one. It doesn't go out of tune. Really nice, reliable workhorse guitar. The next guitar is an electro classical guitar. This is a nylon guitar. And this is a Yamaha NCX5. Beautiful, solid top. By the way, this guitar stand is brilliant. I love it. This is actually a stand that I bought from Gear for Music here in the UK. They make their own stands. And this is like a Fender guitar case when you close it. I'm going to link it in the description. Now, the next guitar that I have here is this beauty. And this is a Fender Telecaster. Noiseless pickups, love this thing. I use it all the time, locking tuners and everything. There's another guitar here. This is a really old guitar. I've had it for more than 10 years. I've actually switched the pickups on this one. This is an Epiphone, but with the pickup replacement, it sounds fantastic. The original pickups I wasn't a big fan of, but these ones are really, really beautiful. Now let's move on to the synth section. So here, of course, I have the Montage 8. This is my workhorse main synthesizer. This is where I do most of my sound design. This is what I use for pretty much every production. This is what I reach for. I've talked about this in the previous video, in the previous studio tour. This is a staple in my studio. I can never work without something like this. It's a pro instrument. You can't get any better than that. And of course, this has the best piano keybed that I've ever tried, apart from a real piano. Just above this, we have my beloved OB6, and these two synths pair very well together. This is my pad machine. I said that on the previous video. I have quite a few sounds for this, actually. I've done sound design. I have pretty much like hundreds and hundreds of original patches. I'm thinking of releasing those at some point, but I'm not sure if it's worth the time and effort to release all the sounds that I have created for this amazing synth. Incredible for, you know, synth wave, all these things. But what I love it more is for pads. It's just unreal for pads and drones. It's really cinematic, this synth. One little thing that I want to show you here is this section. As you can see, here I have a duplicate of my mouse and my keyboard that I have on my actual desk. So this is the expert mouse, but it's a wireless version. So that means when I'm here and I'm far away from my desk, I can still control Cubase. And I also have another keyboard here. This is the Keychron. I love this keyboard. It's a mechanical keyboard. It's very, very tactile. Many gamers like this keyboard. I have it here because I can control Cubase. So I have both my mouse and my keyboard needs right here on the montage. And underneath here, of course, I have the pedals for both synths. I always go for Yamaha pedals. I've had many accidents and many frustrations with third-party pedals that were breaking. I always go for these Yamaha. I have the FC3A, the FC4A, and of course the Expression pedals from Yamaha. These are workhorses. I've never had one break on me. I want to talk about this thing as well. This is, I get so many questions about this. This is an LED panel that you can program. This actually, I've created the Cubase logo right there. You can program it and you can create your own art there. So I love this little thing. It's so cool and so funky. I always have a link in the description for this if you're interested, because you always ask me what this thing is, and this is a Devum, I think it's called. Before we move on to the next synth, this is a microphone setup that I use pretty much all the time, and this is the Neumann U87 and with its original mount. And this is a pop filter that I'm using, which is one of the best pop filters that I found. You know what? I can't remember the name of the company, but I'm going to have a link in the description if you're interested. These are the best pop filters I've ever tried. They stay, you know, they do stay. There's nothing worse than trying to set up a session for a singer and the pop filter won't stay. So this is the best pop filter I've ever tried. It comes in different versions, so you have like this kind of fabric. You also have like some metal versions. I have all of them. I use this one, but basically you just clamp it here and it just stays. I don't even have to try. I also have quite a few more microphones, but they're mostly in storage, so whenever I need a microphone, I just take it out and start recording. Oh, by the way, many of you asked me about my studio chair. This is a very standard chair that you'll find in many professional studios. I've been using these chairs all my professional life because most studios have this exact chair. So this is the Herman Miller Aeron chair. This chair will probably last longer than I do. These are expensive, but you can find really good deals secondhand, because many offices, when they close, they tend to sell them in bulk. So you can get some really good deals. And I think that's how I got mine as well. But come here, let's talk about this synth right here. Now, this is very funny. Sometimes I post little stories or reels on Instagram, and I show some of the synths or some of the analog gear that I have, and many people say, oh, when did you get that synth? And the truth is, I never show my stuff on the videos. I don't show what I have, which is probably a mistake, but here's the new synth since my last studio tour, and this is the Prophet 10. I don't know what to say about this synth. This is just a dream synth. You know, I always wanted to have a Prophet, but I have a little bit of OCD, insecurity. I don't want to buy into vintage synths, especially when I know it's going to be really tough to maintain them and to service them. Especially nowadays with all the chip shortages and the component shortages, I don't want to risk and buy a vintage synth and at some point something breaks and I can't replace it and it's just sitting there collecting dust. I actually want to use everything that I have in the studio. I want to utilize every piece of gear all the time, and I don't want anything to have downtime. So this is a brand new Prophet 10 and it sounds just incredible. And of course, right here I have the Sub 37. I've talked about this. This is my bass synth. I use this to create sub basses, synth basses, leads, all these things. It has character, it has grit, it has tone, it's angry, it's an angry synth. I like it, that's why I have it here and I'm not selling it, because it does have a character to give me. And this hasn't been emulated, it's a new synth, but I think it's a classic, it's a modern classic. The Prophet 10, I use it for all my kind of 80s cinematic stuff, for my film composing. Of course, this doesn't have effects, it's completely dry. So that's why, if we come down here, you will see that I have a range of pedals. Before we talk about these, let me show you the boring stuff. As you can see right here, I have two DI boxes. This is a mono one. This is a stereo one. and these I use for all my synths. I like running my synths through DI boxes so that I can eliminate ground loops and any noise, maintain the audio quality. Right here in the UK, we don't tend to have big problems with ground loops, but still I want to keep things clean. So I have two radial DIs. This is the standard version and this is the fancy JDI version. Both of them are great, you can't go wrong. They're built to last, metal, fantastic. Now, talking about the pedals, this is what I use mainly for my Prophet 10. I have the Helix HX Stomp. This gives me pretty much a huge palette of effects to run my Prophet 10 through, so choruses, flangers, doublers, reverbs, delays, everything is right here. As you can see, I always like to create my own presets. So right here we have the DOM wide Prophet preset. This is what allows me to make Prophet 10 stereo, because Prophet 10 is actually mono synth. But once I load this preset that I've created, immediately the Prophet 10 sounds like a stereo synthesizer. So it's clever processing with the HX Stomp from line 6. Now, after this, we have, well, the Big Sky. I think that most of you will be familiar with this pedal. It's a heavenly reverb. Anything you run through this sounds heavenly. And this I use, of course, for my Prophet 10. The Prophet 10 is really dry. And this is like the most lush reverb you can get. One thing that I would like for the Big Sky would be to have a rack version, a professional rack version with balanced connections and everything. Something really boring, but something that really saves you time is these snakes that I have here. So I can just plug things here and these go back to my audio interface. So I can very easily unhook a synth, plug something else in. Maybe I want to have like a microphone. I can just plug it in here and this goes through one single cable back to my audio interface. And these are custom made. I use a company here in the UK. I'm going to have it in the description. So, you know, you can order these and create your own configurations. So I love this. This is a really good investment if you ask me. Now let's talk about these guys here. But before we do, let's talk about the main section of the studio, and this is the desk, right? This is the new desk that I got for the new studio, and this is the Dominator desk by Studio Desk. And this desk completely changed the way I work. My workflow has become so much easier. I just love it to bits. And if you want to know more about this, I've done a very detailed review, so I'm going to link it down below. This is an amazing desk. I've been using it for quite a few months now. The ergonomics are great. The finish is great. The build quality is great. The only thing that I would say is I always make sure that I keep everything clean so I don't have any sharp objects on the desk, because this is a matte desk, it's beautiful. So, you know, if you're not careful, you're going to scratch it. So I'm careful with my desk, but even if it scratches, I'm not going to, you know, just cry too much about it, because it's a working desk. This is my workstation. What do I have right here? First of all, the monitors, they didn't change. They're the Adams SV2s. I always mess up the name. They're quite powerful, so you need to have like a decent sized room for these. Then I have a new monitor. This is from BenQ, and I love this monitor so much. It's really sharp. It's also very accurate. So if you want to do Photoshop or color grading like I do for videos, this monitor really delivers, and it works very well with PCs. But if you connect a Mac using USB-C, it immediately powers the Mac, and it's already fully compatible with the newest Macs out there. I don't remember the name of the model. There are some crazy numbers with BenQ, but I'm going to link it down below. Let me talk about the keyboard. This is the Logitech MX Keys, if I'm not mistaken. What I like about this keyboard is that it's both Mac and PC compatible, so I can switch from Mac to PC very easily just by pressing one of these buttons here. So this is my PC. Once I hit the number 2, I am controlling my Mac. Next, we have my Slim Blade. This is my favorite mouse. I cannot live without this. You probably know this. I've made a video. Let me talk about everything that was there before really quickly. The TC2290 delay from TC Electronics. These are controllers. Next, I'm going to talk about these things. These are, again, very important. So these are controlling my power sockets. So with this one, I can turn my monitors on or off like this. With this one, I can turn on and off the SSL, which I'm gonna talk in a second. And with number 3, I'm controlling my Midi keyboard, and I'm turning the complete control 88 on and off using number 3. And with this one, I'm controlling my pedals, so I can turn my pedals on and off with this socket, and I have 2 more for other stuff in case I need them. So this is really cool. This is the remote control for the studio desk, the Dominator. I can change the color of the LED, the intensity. I can have different effects there. So that's pretty cool. Next, we have my controller section. As you can see, some things have changed. I have my monogram CC. This has completely integrated into my workflow after the Cubase MIDI remote control update with Cubase 12. I have the knob controller. I've made a video about this as well, and that's why it occupies this space right here on my desk. Next, I have the Stream Deck. Many of you have asked me about the Stream Deck. I've never done a video about the Stream Deck, but this controller is really good, and I really started using it even more when Cubase introduced the new MIDI remote with Cubase 12. So as you can see, I have quite a few things here. I have OBS. I can start recording with OBS. I have different commands for Cubase, macros that I've created. For example, I can see my mod wheel, I can see my piano CC, so sustain and velocity, mod wheel and expression, all these things for my key editor right there. Then I have locator controls, cycle markers, I can undo visibility, I can create VCA group, effects channels, folder channels, I can do my manual de-essing. I have made a video about this, check it out. I actually press this button and then I can immediately de-ess the proper way. I can disable tracks and so on and so forth. It's really, really versatile. I love this thing. Now, next to this is something that it's on a test phase. You know, I'm testing this. This is the SSL UF8. This is an 8-fader controller. The build quality is great. I might make a video about this, like full video about this. So let me know in the comments down below if you're interested. This doesn't replace my CC121. I'm going to tell you straight away. The only reason you don't see the CC121 is because I'm trying to see if I could work just with this one. So I can make a very nice review for you and I can actually tell you my real thoughts about this as a standalone controller if you don't have the CC121, because the CC121 is not being manufactured anymore. Something that has changed since my last studio tour is these MIDI keyboard right here. And the reason why it changed is because now I can afford to have an 88 key keyboard with this desk, the Dominator desk, because this keyboard stand is just unreal. It feels so natural. I can feel like I'm playing a real acoustic piano here. And the height is right, it doesn't wobble, I can just hit it hard, play like Chopin and everything, and it can take it. The action is quite good. I think this is a Fatar keybed, so it's very, very good. Not as good as the Montage, but I mean, there's also a big price difference right there. I can talk about this before we get into the analog gear. This is my Maschine Mark3. I really like this, great pad controller. I also have the Akai MPC Live 2, but I've loaned this to a friend, so I can't show this today. If we come here, I'll show you something that I recently got and I'm really, really happy with. This is actually a monitor. It's completely portable. It's from a company called Arzopa. I have no clue. As you can see, I'm using this exclusively for supervision. So I have all my complex meters right there and I don't use it for anything else. I just use it for supervision and my input meters on my Cubase console. The great thing is it's so light because look at it. It's so thin and it wasn't very expensive as well. To be honest with you, I realized while working that I don't need a bigger monitor. I wanted more space for gear. So I have this main monitor, my 4K monitor, and this one is great because I can see everything that I want. Everything else is happening on my 4K monitor, which is 32 inches. If I move it away, you will see that I have a ClDigit hub right there. This is actually a dock. It's a Thunderbolt 4 dock. and I use it both for Mac and PC. Right now it's working on my PC. It's working quite well. It has SD card slot. Right here I have all my dongles, so 2 iLoks and my Steinberg dongle that is probably going to become obsolete very soon, but I put it right here so I don't see it. And then the monitor goes in front. I don't see it. It helps with my OCD. Okay, now let's talk about analog gear. I know you've been waiting for this. So let's start with something that I've already talked about. We start from here. This is the Portico 2 channel strip from Rupert Neve. Now, this is now discontinued. I've done a review video about this, and I still love this thing. I have many preamps. This is still my number one. This is how I record all my YouTube videos. I record voiceovers, I record vocals, I record guitars, basses. It's brilliant. The silk circuit is amazing. Like I said, this is discontinued, so if you find one secondhand right now, I would suggest you grab it. Now let's talk about this section, okay? So this section is actually something that I wanted to have for a long time. A bunch of analog gear, my favorite analog gear just in front of me, so I'm always in the sweet spot. So let's take it from the top. This is the Purple Audio MC77. This is one of the best 1176 compressors out there right now. You know, many people say that the Universal Audio modern 1176s are not as good. In my opinion, the MC77 is the one that comes closest to the original 1176 sound. Freaking amazing. If you're interested, I'm going to make a video. I use it for vocals, I use it for drums. It's just built so well as well. Fantastic. Next we have my new passion. This is the Cranbourne Audio A.500. This allows you to have all these modules, and I don't have any analog connections in the back. No leads, it's just 2 A.DAT cables and that's it. So it's all optical, and I can use all of these as plugins in Cubase. I can record through them, I can create my own chains, but let me give you a very quick overview of what I have. This is the Chandler Limited TG Opto. This compressor is simply unreal. It can be transparent or it can pump. If nothing else works, I use this compressor. It's just amazing. The next module that I have is the 550B EQ from API. This is a legendary EQ, of course. I use it for guitars, I use it for vocals, I use it for snares, for kick drums. It's one of these EQs that adds quite a bit of attitude if you want to. You know, it's not a sweet EQ, but it's just amazing. I can't live without this. Next we have this beautiful compressor. This is the Retro Instruments Double White 2. And this was unavailable for such a long time. I love this compressor. It's so warm. Many people get this if they can't afford an LA2A, and I see why. It doesn't sound the same like an LA2A in my opinion, because I also have an LA2A that I'm going to show you in a second, but it does give you a very different flavor. So, you know, even if you are not going to get 100% the LA2A sound, this is a sound on its own. It can completely stand its ground. It has a double mode as well, so it can become really fast. The single mode is really creamy, warm, you know, for female vocals, soft vocals, bass, you know, acoustic instruments. This is a beautiful compressor. This actually takes 2 slots. Next we have the Maag EQ4. I mean, I'm pretty sure that many of you might know this from the Plugin Alliance version. This is basically the EQ to add top end to vocals without sibilance. It sounds so lush, and the top end is silky. This is my vocal EQ, okay? This is what I do to add some magic dust to vocals. And it works in a very strange way. So again, if you want me to make a detailed review for any of these pieces, let me know. Next, I have something that I never thought I would get, but I accidentally demoed this and I fell in love and I bought it straight away. This is the Zahl EQ. This is the only stereo module that I have, and this I use for mastering, I use it for mixing. It's a beautiful EQ. Especially the low end is really unreal what it does. It almost sounds like you've added a subharmonic synthesizer sometimes if you set it in such a way. It's so analytical, it can become really, really narrow, or you can do broad strokes. It can become a mixing EQ, or it can become a mastering EQ. I've said this many times, this is a secret weapon. Not many people know about this. I love this thing. Again, if you want me to make a review about this EQ, this is an expensive one. This is one of the most expensive 500 series modules that I've ever seen, but it's totally worth it. Next up we have, of course, the Rupert Neve Designs Portico 2 Master Bus Processor. I'm not gonna talk about this too much. I've done a full video comparing this to the Ssl Fusion. This is, again, something that I will never get rid of. This is a big part of my sound, especially when I'm mastering, and this is such a versatile unit. It's almost like cheating, this unit. It's just amazing. Watch my video if you haven't done so, because I go into a lot of detail on what this thing can do. Next, if we go this way, I have my two bus compressor flavors that I absolutely need, and this is the SSL G-Series Compressor. Of course, I've talked about this a little bit on my Fusion video. Also done a comparison video between these two. I'm not sure if it's going to be out by the time you see this. So this is the API 2500 Plus, and the Plus is a big thing for me because this allows you to do quite a few things with the channel linking, but you can also do blending, and you can also have this in parallel. Sometimes I use the SSL, sometimes I use the API, and they give you completely different flavors. And in my opinion, they sound different to the plugins as well. I still use the plugins, but for my mixing and mastering work that I do, which is my main line of business, I need these two compressors. Right here I have a MIDI interface from ESI. This is the M4uEX, and this I use because I prefer to run MIDI cables from my synths that are on the other side of the studio instead of USB cables that sometimes carry like ground loops and all sorts of things. So I prefer to have something like this. Okay, now let's talk about the analog gear, all the pieces in my rack. So let's start from the bottom. First of all, I have a nice drawer where I have bits and bobs because I have more gear to add. Maybe this will go away, we'll see. Next, I have a new addition. This is the RME 12 mic pre. This one has 12 mic pre's, and the reason why I got this is because it supports MADI, and because all my ADAT ports are already occupied, I couldn't have any more ADATs on my system. So this is MADI, which means I can extend this using a MADI interface, which I haven't done yet, unfortunately, because everything is out of stock at the moment. So I can't really fully utilize this, but this sounds stellar. It has amazing preamps, but the reason why I got this is mainly for my synths, so that I can plug more and more synths, and it's always going to be available right here in the front. Next, I have a really old interface. This is the Fireframes UFX. I've talked about this in my previous video. This, I use it for monitoring, for routing things when I'm doing videos, and so on and so forth. This has always been reliable, of course. And I'm going to show you in a second my main audio interface, which is the Steinberg AXR. That's in the server room. Here I have the Tegeler Creme RC. Again, I've done a video about this. I've done a full review. Go ahead and check it out. These are motorized controls, so you can control these with a plugin and you will see them turning like that. This is a beautiful piece of gear. The reason why I have it right here and it's so low in the rack, as you will see also with the Bettermaker, is because this is controlled using a plugin, so I don't have to have it next to me. So I'm trying to be very economical when it comes to space and what gear I need to reach for. This I don't need to reach for. Actually, I always use a specific setting on this one, and it's set and forget. It always sounds sweet on the master bus. The next piece is the Bettermaker Mastering EQ. Again, I demoed this and I was blown away, so I ended up buying this. I'm doing a lot of mastering, so this makes total sense for me. This is a mastering EQ. I don't use it only for mastering, by the way. Again, this is digitally controlled, so I can load a plugin in Cubase and I can do all my settings here, and this will be recalled with the project. So this is a time saver. It's huge when I need to recall settings, and it just sounds brilliant. If you wanted to make a review about the Bettermaker Mastering EQ, let me know in the comments down below. The more you ask for it, the higher the chances I'm gonna do it. Let's move on to the next one, and again, I'm not gonna dwell too much on this one. This is the Ssl Fusion. I've done a video about this. Next, we have some big guns, and this is the Tubetech Cl1B compressor. I mean, I don't know what to say about this. This is a holy grail of compressors. I think this is one of the safest compressors to use when you're tracking, because if you know how to set it up, it can sound completely transparent. It's a tube compressor. I absolutely love it on pop vocals. It has this kind of modern, very detailed sound, and it can take anything. If you have a very dynamic vocal and you run it through this, it can actually tame it. I have this permanently connected to my inserts in Cubase, so if I have a lead vocal, I have options for compressors. So I can use either the MC77, I can use the double wide, I can use the TG Opto, I can use the Tubetech, or I can use this one right here. And this is, again, iconic compressor. This is a Teletronix LA2A. I don't know, do we need any special introductions about the LA2A? For me, it's one of my favorite compressors ever. I love it for bass, I love it for vocals. It's one of these compressors that if you run a vocal through it, it's bound to sound better. Even if you don't compress too much, it immediately makes vocals sound warm, it gives you depth, it gives you body. I love this compressor. It's actually one of the compressors that I use after the Cl1B to track, because it makes singers feel very comfortable. It gives you a great sound so they can deliver a better performance. I found that the LA2A has this effect on singers, and it's one of the reasons why I have it, because there are many amazing plugins that try to emulate the LA2A, but when you're tracking, you need the real deal, because it has to be real time and you need the hardware for this. So the front end is very important. I bought this more because of the front end rather than the mixing. And you know, sometimes you might record something through this and it doesn't need any mixing, it's already there. When I have a mix to do and I have a vocal, I can immediately tell if it's going to be an LA2A vocal, an 1176 vocal, a Cl1B vocal, or a combination, which is sometimes the most fun. Next, we have the Lynx Hilo. If you've watched my previous studio tour, this is the converter that I use. It's great because, you know, it's a mastering grade converter, and this does all my A to D and D to A conversion. So everything that's analog goes through this, and I'm listening through this as well. I mean, it's a Lynx, you know, it's top of the game, and sometimes I like to clip this converter, and it sounds really nice when you clip it. So if I want to get a little bit more loudness and I want to be cheeky, I tend to clip this. Next, we have the, of course, Black Box Hg2. I've done a full review about this. I can't say enough good words about this unit. I'm never going to sell this. This is amazing, and you know, anything you run through this is going to sound better. That's the only thing I can say. Check out my video. I've done a very detailed review about this, and the more I use it, the more tricks I find every single time. Next, we have another preamp. This is the Neve 1073 SPX, and this is my color preamp. This is a colorful Neve 1073 preamp. I love this version because it's very ergonomic. It's the newer incarnations of the 1073, but I like the fact that I have things connected in the back permanently, and if I want to, I can just hook up a microphone here or a bass or a guitar, and I can switch them front and back. So this is great for me. For me, ergonomics is number one. You know, if I have a piece of gear, I mean, the LA2A doesn't have great ergonomics, for example, but I can let it go because it's just so good. But this one sounds amazing, and it has all the modern ergonomics. It's a very classic sound. I don't use it for everything. I would probably go for the Portico most of the times if I want to be on the safe side, but this, I know when to use it. You know, it gives you a very specific character, and it just sounds so smooth and warm. This thing right here, this is the Tape Echo EFX2. Now this is a real tape echo and spring reverb. So this actually has tapes in it and it has a real spring reverb. So for me, this is, I love this thing, just love it. The spring reverb sounds like nothing else. I have many spring reverb emulations in Cubase and I love them, but this thing sounds so organic. It's mono, so I have to do some special tricks in order to make it sound stereo. I use it for vocals, I use it for guitars, I use it for synths, and it gives you a beautiful organic delay sound straight away, and also the spring reverb. It's just unreal. You have to, you know, do your homework with the gain staging. Gain staging is so important. That's why I've made a video about gain staging. All these things, if you don't know your gain staging, they're useless. You're going to get a bad sound if you don't know your gain staging, if you don't know how to drive them. Each one of these machines, you know, they all have to be driven in a different way. You know, if you start overdriving them, you might get a different sound when you overdrive this one, or when you overdrive this one, or when you overdrive the Cl1B. And if you feed it with a different level, you're gonna get a different sound. So many times people that don't know about gain staging, they invest on something like this and they're like, oh, it sounds bad, you know? But the truth is, have you done your gain staging right? Next we have the Kemper Profiler here. I use this for guitars along with my Helix. Now very quickly let me show you the server room. There are quite a few things here, hard drives, my NAS drives and everything, but I wanted to show you my audio interface. This is the AXR4U. I use this one as my main recording interface as well. And on top of this, I just put it here so I can show you. This is the Blackmagic multi-dock. I wanted to show you this because I think this is a brilliant solution if you're working on a laptop and you want to have multiple SSDs connected using one USB cable. So all these are SSDs. You can slot more into this. This I got it after a suggestion from a good friend of mine, Happy. If you're listening, thank you so much for suggesting this. And I got it for my Mac computers. I don't usually have it here. I try to keep some space between my gear anyway, but I wanted to show you this. That's why it's not connected at the moment. Yeah, right here I have my NAS. It's a lot of stuff going on here, and this is far away so that I can avoid any noise coming from my mechanical hard drive. Let's go back to the main studio now. Now, gear is all great, but one of the most important things that people tend to completely neglect sometimes because it's not the sexiest thing that you can buy for your studio, it's acoustic treatment. And I've invested a lot in acoustic treatment for this studio. Pretty much everything that I have comes from GIK Acoustics. The panels right here, they look so good. And you know, these have survived already one studio move. They're stellar, and the sound was transformed when I added these. Then I have bass straps. I have corner bass straps, as you can see right here. And I had these in black so that they match these ones. The great thing about this is you don't need to hang them anywhere. You don't need to mount them somehow. You just stack them, and GIK Acoustics, they make them custom. So if you have a taller room, they can actually make them fit your room. So these made a huge difference when it came to the bass response and controlling the low end in the room. Right here we have Acoustic Curtain because there's a window behind this, which actually works great for the days that I'm producing and I want to have some sun coming into the studio. But this really helps dampen the sound over here. This side has no wall. Right here we have more bass straps, and as you can see, here is the red section, and these are more panels. And right here I have more bass straps, this time in red, so that it matches this side of the room. By the way, on the desk I have mounted this Elgato light. This is what lights my face when I do YouTube videos, when I don't want to set up big lights and basically make the studio inhabitable for a couple of days. So there you go, my friends. This was my studio tour. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you so much for asking so relentlessly about this, because honestly, I would probably never do it if it wasn't for you. In the comments down below, let me know if you have any questions. If you want me to do a review for any of the things that I showed you, let me know. If I get 50 people telling me, don't please make a review for the DG Opto or the double wide or the UF8, I'm probably gonna do it, but at least I know that it's going to be worth the effort and the time. Like I said, I'm going to do my best to leave everything that I just showed you in links down below. It's probably going to be impossible. I'm going to do my best, I promise. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!